Okay, so this morning we're just gonna go over the main features of the site. This is 3, 4, and 5, but all of the sites are essentially the same. They're laid out the same way. So I'm gonna hit kind of the highlights for each grade level and then give you time to start digging through and asking questions, because I know a lot of times things don't make sense until you actually are clicking yourself, and then you'll have more questions. So we're just hitting the highlights right now. So the changes to the scope and sequence in 3rd grade, Karen already alluded to some of these. For geography, Prime Meridian, the oceans, the Gobi Desert, the Great Plains, they've added Chattanooga and the Great Smoky Mountains. History, which you're taking on for the first time, will be the native peoples and cultures, explorers, early settlements, 13 colonies, and frontier Tennessee. So you asked a great question. For most of these grade levels, some of the information you need is in a Tennessee Through Time book from another grade. So try to make friends with somebody. We were thinking, if it were me, I'd see if someone in 4th grade maybe would give me half of their books and I give them half, so we'd have a few of each. Because if you're teaching 5th, if you get the 4th grade book, then it has most of the other stuff that you're taking on. That way you'd at least have that resource. So 4th grade's taking on Manifest Destiny. I know it's probably a concept you kind of taught as an overview, but it's expected that you teach it implicitly now. The sectional differences between the North and the South, the abolitionists, slavery as a national issue, the election of Abraham Lincoln, and all of the Civil War to Reconstruction. So 4th grade teachers will be doing the bulk of the teaching of what led to the war, what some of the main plans were during the war, and lots of the battles. 5th grade friends. Oh, I'm one of them. Seeing this, it's like a dagger through the heart. We love starting the year with the Civil War. You will still teach the Civil War, but you only have the few battles that happened in Tennessee. Not even all of them. You just have a few. And I know it's hard, as I'm saying, like, yes, all the tiers, but you cannot still teach all of this. Like, you won't have time. So you're going to need to share those things with 4th grade. Let them teach the Anaconda Plan. Let them teach all that. All you hit is 4 battles, and then you'll move on. And I know that's hard, very hard. So 5th grade. So as Karen mentioned, they decided that students were graduating. They didn't know enough Tennessee history. They tried to come up with an entire course. It was supposed to be a semester for high school. They couldn't make it fit, so they dropped it into 5th grade. So if you go to the state's website, the way the standards are written is you're supposed to start in August and you teach all of the history for the U.S. up to December, and then come back in January and you'd go back in time and teach the same period but only focus on Tennessee, which didn't make sense to me. So when I was helping Karen with the scope and sequence and we built the site, I mixed them in together, and hopefully that will make sense so that when you're already teaching the American Indians, U.S., just focus on Tennessee. When you get to World War I already added in the Tennessee people instead of having you come back. It will be confusing for the kids, like, didn't we already cover this time period? So this way you're going in chronological order. So all the standards are there, but you'll notice they are not always sequential, and that is why. So you might have like a 5.3 and a 5.23 right there together, because if you're already talking about the 20s, go ahead and cover all the musicians and everything instead of coming back at the end and hitting that again. So some of the new things we're taking on, and if you've taught 5th grade, like if you're as old as I am, a lot of this we had way back in the day. So 5th grade is picking up major indigenous settlements in Tennessee, the Proclamation of 1763, the Watauga Settlement, American Revolution in Tennessee, the lost state of Franklin, statehood, the War of 1812, Andrew Jackson's presidency, important Tennesseans prior to the Civil War, the 3 grand divisions, and government. So again, you cannot keep teaching all of the Civil War and all of the Reconstruction because you're going to run out of time. All right, so now we're going to start the overview. So just like where, if you've been teaching science where it says OER resources, you should now have a button. Just go ahead and click it. You should have a new button that says social studies. They picked the globe for the icon. We decided to have one landing page. So as you can see, elementary, high school, everything is all in one spot now. So depending on what grade you are, you can just click on your grade level because the home pages and everything are essentially the same. And we're going to start with 5th grade, if that's okay with you. So every page looks like this. We're calling this the home page. It has the key concepts for the year. All of these are things directly from the Tennessee Department of Education website, giving you kind of a narrative of what the kids are going to be learning this year. When you scroll down, we have the unit plans listed. the scopes and sequences, and we're gonna click on lots of these things. I'm just kind of giving an overview. Another way to get to the units is if you click over there where Karen's hovering, and you can see them there. Now, while we're on 5th grade, I do want to let you know that 5th grade will be teaching BizTown, and I'm calling it Financial Literacy Jumpstart because it sounds fancy. Everyone's going to teach that at the beginning of the year. So it doesn't matter when you're going to BizTown, you need to teach Financial Literacy Jumpstart at the beginning of the year. You know, in past years, Karen has emailed you or your social studies facilitator and said, when are you going to BizTown? Because that's the benchmark I'm going to give you. She's not going to do that anymore. All of the questions that go with BizTown are going to be on the first benchmark. So you need to teach it at the beginning, which I know seems odd because it's easier to just do it right before you go. You don't have to do all of the nitty-gritty math stuff, teaching them how to do a checkbook. Just hit those standards that will be, that come from social studies that you know will be on the benchmark. And then when you get closer to time to go, then you can do everything else, okay? But just make sure, because I don't want you to get the benchmark, then email Karen and be like, what happened? We are not going to BizTown yet. Everyone's gonna have it at the same time. The other new thing you'll notice on everyone's site is Freedom Week. In the past, we had Constitution Day, and then the federal government decided people don't know enough about the Constitution, so now it lasts an entire week. And again, this is a federal mandate, not a state mandate, not a Williamson County expectation. You'll see when you see the standard, it has federal mandate in bold and a lot of numbers. You're expected to teach the kids something related to the Constitution and the founding of the country during that week. Now, the expectation is not very clear, so that could be as little as 5 minutes a day. You can go all out. You are not expected to stop teaching everything else, though, and solely focus on the Constitution. So you don't want this to become cumbersome. Like, you don't want to fall behind, like, well, if I hadn't been doing Freedom Week, I wouldn't have fallen behind. Some teachers are planning to choose a book, read a few pages each day, have a discussion, maybe a writing prompt, and go with that. If you're 4th grade and you know you're going to be teaching this anyway, as you get to it, then I would just kind of sprinkle in some things because you're going to get back to it later. So we have a whole page for both of those things for 5th grade, Financial Literacy Jumpstart and Freedom Week. All other grade levels, you will not see Financial Literacy Jumpstart if you have standards based on economic concepts, and it's just called economics. So on this first page, again, all the unit plans are here. This is where they're broken down into the quarters. This is all the quarters, and then this is the year at the glance. You want to click on that one? That's where they can see things. Again, there's one of these for every grade level. So we have suggested numbers of days. So this is the name of the unit, which quarter you should be teaching it, and how long we think it'll take, the standards it covers. If you notice, 5th grade, you have lots of WCEs. If you're new, those are Williamson County expectations. 3rd and 4th, you won't have as many. We added in some things that we felt like were important, like the Korean War, because the state took them out and there's no mention of them. Also, you'll notice WCE SS11 is mentioned over and over again. That's the one about kids being able to think about past events using the correct mindset, like not thinking about today's time, but being able to empathize, which is what Karen was saying. That's hard. So I've sprinkled activities to help you with that throughout. So that's why you see that one over and over. We have the pacing guides linked here where you can click and go straight to the unit planning guide, which we'll come back to in detail later to show you how to use that. Okay, the standards reference guide is next. Now, to me, this was very important. This was important all year. We constantly got to the point, like I had this just taped right on the wall next to the computer because we were constantly trying to figure out. One of the questions we got the most this year from people as we went out and visited is, what does the state mean? What are they going to ask? But this is where you can see when you start looking at the I cans, or you're asking, well, it's very broad. Are they really going to ask about these things? This is the verbiage they use. So if it says IE, they're giving you specific examples that you should be teaching. But if it says EG, these are just examples that might be on the test, but this isn't limited to this. So just because it's gone, if you say, oh, they took off, something you hated anyway, you're like, yes, I don't have to teach that anymore. If it's an EG, it's still fair game. So in Katie's writing items and working with ETS or Pearson, whoever's making the test, even things that aren't listed, if it's an EG, they could still ask. Okay, does that make sense? Which is hard. And in some cases, we emailed and called and talked on the phone with Katie, like asking her to be more specific. But you'll see when you start digging into the standards, some of them are very broad, and it's hard to know exactly what they'll ask. So we linked this just to help you when you start planning with your teams to know what the standards meant. All right, the next one is the ISTE Standards. Most of you won't be that concerned about this. This is just where we highlighted, these are the technology standards that everyone's required to teach in Tennessee. We just made this so you can see that we did link, and this is all the grade levels are here. So if you're very concerned that you're not doing the ISTE standards with technology and you want to know exactly where we put them, that's there. So the next thing that you will want to look at is the social studies crosswalk. So I want you to click on the crosswalk for whatever grade level, because obviously everyone's going to be different. And for my brain, this is backwards, because what we're currently teaching is on this side. Will you make it a little bit bigger because it's hard to see? Just hit the zoom. Nope, down here. Sorry. What we're currently teaching is here, and this is new. Third, fourth, and fifth, the state put in bold any big changes. So that helps. The younger grades, they didn't do this. So what you're looking at is 501. This is what the old standard said. So you see how wordy it is? And now it just says, explain the need for the South's move toward industrialization after the Civil War. So they're not saying to you, okay, you need to mention Coca-Cola bottling and mining and iron processing, of cities starting to spring up and railroads. But how many of you understand you will not be able to teach the kids to explain any of that unless you mention all those things? Do you see what I'm saying? So the state went very vague and very broad, but you will definitely still have to mention certain things. This is an infographic Ashley made. There's a couple throughout the sites to just kind of give you an idea of where the kids start and where they end up. So kindergarten, they just learn their home address. By first grade, they're learning the 3 divisions and then these places. Second grade, they focus on the regions. Third grade, all 50 states, all the continents, these countries. Fourth grade, they start focusing on specific places based on historical events, in this case, the Civil War. And then fifth grade, they're expected to know all of that, plus now all of these sites and places. All right, so when you go down to the bottom, we're calling this the teacher toolkit. It's at the bottom of every grade levels page, and it's essentially the same. There may be a few things missing if we thought they weren't age appropriate. This first section is about interactive notebooks. How many people use interactive notebooks already in some form? You don't have to be a rock star at them. I feel like I always start the year amazing, and then I just, toward the middle, things get a little bit, you hit the struggle. But these are resources. There's videos, there's examples. Let's say you want to try to get started. If you've already been doing them a while, there's some resources to help you improve. There's interactive notebook templates. Do you want to click here, because I think this is one that this one. If you've already been using them, this is going to be a great resource for you. So this is a website where you can choose one of these, and Karen can click on any one of them, and it'll give them their blurb. We're allowed to use it. You can edit directly in these. So you can type into it and then print it out and be good to go. So this has lots of different types. Yeah. And that's linked on every homepage. You want to go back. So when you get to that, if you've decided you want to make something, but you aren't as techie and it takes you forever, like with me, those templates, and there's hundreds of them to choose from. All right, this next one is just visual aids, like making timelines, concept maps, vocabulary activities. Most of these are templates. We put them on the homepage because you can use them all year no matter what concepts you're teaching. Teaching with primary sources. Resources are here. We're going to focus a lot on that today because that's something I'm passionate about, getting the kids used to using those because they have to know. This is basically how they pass all their history courses from middle school and on up, is being able to analyze primary resources. So the section Karen mentioned earlier, we're calling it best practices for teaching sensitive topics. So if you are moving into an upper grade, you've never taught it, and you're worried about, oh, how do I handle the Civil War? What do I do about the Holocaust? These are resources that will help you. Most of these are just lists of strategies, things to think about. Now, this is not all inclusive. We are limited in what we can put on the site because we have to have copyright permission. So there's other ways to find things out. If you're interested, you can just put what are best practices for teaching the Holocaust in whatever grade you are, and you'll find other resources. This is just kind of to get you started. On this side, we have listed planning tools that will link you to the K-5 social studies site. Field trips are listed here. We're going to come back to that later because Karen's going to talk about some of the changes she made. Kahoot is something lots of people use. If you are a person who has not been using Google Forms to make tests, this is life-changing, and that site walks you through how to do it. Unify will be linked later, and Karen's going to talk a little bit more about Unify. Content tools, just because they're here doesn't mean we didn't also put them on the site, but these are ones that we found invaluable. America's Story from the Library of Congress, the American Battlefield Trust, Smithsonian, places to get maps. Studies Weekly, we are losing our subscription unless you choose to purchase it individually, but Studies Weekly also has a YouTube channel where they have snippets of lots of their videos, so we linked it there because some of them are great. Lots of different things, Discovery Education, Interactive Investigations. This is a book that your literacy coach should have. Tennessee History for Kids. If you're 5th grade, there's 3 books this year. These are all the teacher's guides. So if you're like Alan and you just kind of want to see what he added, you could click there to kind of see. We found a couple of distance learning programs. The Tennessee State Museum is doing one. Theirs is newer. So when we practiced with them, it was not as amazing. They're getting there, but if you click on the Charters of Freedom one, this is perfect for Freedom Week. It's going to fill up. So if you go here when we give you time to start planning and decide you want to do this, I would request it now. So the way this one works, do you go up to the top so they can kind of see? So this is from the National Archives. This is free. All of these are aligned to national standards. If you decide to request, this tells you click, you email her. Basically, you're going to be having a one-on-one kind of Skype session using the camera with your class. And you can tell her what grade kids you have, what you're focusing on. It lasts about an hour, but let's say you don't have an hour, she can tailor it down. So we did it with them. We pretended to be a class of students, and it was great. The people doing it are all docents and historians that work at the National Archives. So they had actual artifacts and things they showed the kids. For the young kids, they have an eagle puppet who talks to them. You can let her talk back and forth with your kids. Of course, if you have one of the kids with the dreaded, what's it called, where they can't be pictures, all that, what they call that form, then you might have to think that. So if you have a kid like that, either sit them off camera. Some classes, she says she does, they don't let the kids actually speak back and forth. Some classes, the teacher will have already decided which questions the kids come up with, and then she asks the questions, and the person answers it for them. But there's all different kinds of citizenship, the Constitution, the founding documents. So that would really help you out for the Freedom Week because somebody else will have made the lesson plan. All you have to do is log in at the appropriate time and have your class ready. They can do 2 or 3 classes at one time. So that's there. These are resources for teaching English learners. And then these are things we're talking about you're allowed to buy. Vocabulary, I love, and I know some schools have it, some don't. We put it here. It is approved, but again, you'd have to get site-based funds or just pay for an individual subscription. And then Social Studies Weekly. The 2 buttons that Karen mentioned are here. So let's say you have an amazing resource. I know Melody, some other people shared things with us as we were visiting. If you have amazing things that go with Civil War, we could just add them to the site. Then all of your stuff would be in one spot. And we have another hub that we made for that on a Google Classroom where you can share also. But let's say you're looking through the site and you're like, oh my gosh, I have the most amazing lesson. Karen should add it. You'll click that button. You'll fill in the information. It'll go to a spreadsheet to all 3 of us up until Friday when this OER site will be handing this baby over to Karen. And she'll be its only mama. Report a problem. So this is where, if you see dreaded broken link, this is where you click. This is also if you see something and you think, okay, this is just not appropriate. Like, I can't believe they put this on here. This doesn't match. This is where you complain about those things. All right, so the top of each one, again, is a blurb that just kind of tells you what they're learning. Then we put the standards and the ICANNs next to them. And if you keep scrolling, then you get into, again, things from the state website, like the social studies practices and themes. Those are just things that tell you this is how you teach social studies. This is the progression of learning. The kids will develop what type of awareness as learners. And then we get into all the stuff. So the key vocabulary, this is not inclusive. You don't need to necessarily make a word wall. The kids don't have to have these memorized. You know your class. I know for me, my block 1 was sometimes so different from block 2. It's like I may as well have been in a whole different school, in another school system, because there's no way they could do the same things. So you might want to add to this. You might take some things away, make it work for your class. We included a couple of misconceptions people have about whatever the topic is. And then going down, one of the things we heard when we started visiting, people who were using the science site was like, it's just all in one big thing. I have no idea what it matches with. So we broke it up into little chunks. So anything that has to do with the U.S. involvement in World War II is here. These are resources that have something to do with the war at home. Now you'll notice if you've been teaching this, a lot of this all goes together. So in some places it's not a perfect match, or you're like, that really could have been over here. Don't email me about that. Because I mean, some of them it's like, oh, it could really go in all of them. So we have the numbers here. So if you know, okay, I'm on 519 this week, that tells you anything with 519. This is the one that I said is probably going to be on everything, because this is teaching kids to think the way you would have thought if you were living back then. It's hard for them to understand, because kids will say, why didn't they just call them on the phone? And somebody will like, they didn't have the phone. You know what I mean? It's hard for the kids to understand that. So these are activities. If it's at the top under activities, these are things that are, for the most part, are like an entire lesson plan. Some of them are just a link to resources. You click on this first one. So Utah Education Network, amazing stuff. They are one of the resources. However, when we contacted them, they will not give us permission to just pick one thing and download it. And lots of the companies were like that. We can link to the site. So when you click, you're gonna be like, none of this looks familiar. So you'll have to scroll down and just pick out the things like I see D-Day, Pearl Harbor, things that you think, okay, I for sure want to use some of those things. If this is not your style, then you might say, oh, I'm not going to be using Utah Education Network. I don't want to have to dig through all of that. Then you're going to want to look for something that's more of, I'm going to click on like this one, Cordell Hull. If it says activity, it's more of a lesson plan. So that's, you see what I mean? Kind of straight to the point. This is an activity. It assumes, it tells you you're going to have the kids watch a brain pop on the United Nations, Cordell Hull, answer these questions. So going down from activities, we added read alouds. Now, again, these are suggestions. If you already have a novel that you already read, if you already have a picture book that you already always read and it matches, you don't have to stop doing that one. You don't need to try to buy all of these books. These are just books we suggested. I always read Number the Stars. The kids like it, and it's short. It makes for a good read aloud the whole class can access. If I found anything to go with the books, I linked it below. Like Scholastic had a discussion guide, some writing prompts. So I went ahead and linked those so that you know, okay, if this is the book you're choosing, this gives you an idea what the book's about. And if you click on some of those things, it tells you activities that you can do and other books that would complement it. All right, do you want to go to another one? Yeah. Some of them had a video read aloud. And again, these are the things that might break easily, simply because they're fine with these being on here, but if it starts to get lots of views, a lot of times they took it down. So underneath that is articles. We used a lot of things from Newsela, also known as Newsela. So if you don't already have an account, you will just make a free account. The great thing about this site, you click where it says the number, is that you can choose to go down. Like if Aaron puts it down to 590, you'll notice the word count went way down to make this accessible for all of your students. Text sets, you want to click on Epic. So Epic again is free. When you log in, make sure you pick that you want the free educator account. If you don't, after you get all the way to the end, it's going to ask for your credit card. You just want the free teacher account. This one is approved. The tech coaches know about it. So what it does is once you've made a profile, you can make what are known as collections. So I've already linked to mine. So once you have an account, when you click, it'll go straight to the collection I made. In this case, this is the World War II collection. So you'll notice it's all things that have to do with World War II. Now, let's say you say, oh, this collection's terrible. I don't know what she was thinking. You can make your own collection. You can add to this one. Some of them go down a little bit, Karen. Some of them read to the kids. So if it says read to me, that means if you have someone who can't read very well or needs help, you want to click on one of them, open it so they can see what it looks like. So when she hits start reading, it's going to start reading aloud to them. Once you guys are logged in, like that's not my computer, so we're not logged in. All of them, even if they don't need it read to them, once you open the book, if there's a word they don't know, they can click on the word and it will say it out loud and tell them what it means. So yeah, I was like, how have I been teaching without Epic? So Epic is free. We're going to give you a list later of all the things that you need to join. That way, if you have trouble with them, Ashley should be here by then so she can help with tech things, because me, not so much. Right, you want to go back? I'm trying to think what else is on Brain Pop, we've already included. I know most people are already using Brain Pop. Any other videos? I try to stick to the videos from World War II that were not as scary. I know every year I feel like I have maybe 3 or 4 kids who are all into it. They have parents that are into it, so they already know a lot. And others are like, we had a war, and like any mention of shooting scares them. Anything related to primary sources, I've put down here. So if you know, okay, I'm going to do a primary source activity today, you can go straight here. Click on the MTSU one. So MTSU is linked for every grade level. MTSU is another organization. It's amazing. They put out all these free things. They're straight from the Library of Congress, and they've gone through the trouble to find the ones that match. But this is like 4 people work here. 2 of them are graduate assistants not getting paid. So they have begun the process of going through and changing all the standard numbers. But there's a good chance you might open it and be like, oh, this is good, but some of this we don't have anymore. That's just because they haven't updated. Now, also having said that, when they do update it, the link will die. So you might click on one name like, oh, it's gone. Just do MTSU, primary sources, whatever grade, and find it again. In the meantime, once someone reports it, Karen or the tech coach will update it. But this one is great because it gives you all these activities. And again, a lot of this stuff you're like, we don't even have that anymore. It's because that she hasn't gone through and taken some things off. But you can click on these links. Some of them are full-blown lessons. Some of them are just great primary sources. And you know, beginning of the year, probably wouldn't use these because kids can't read cursive, but they give lots of things like actual letters they found written by like William Lloyd Garrison to Frederick Douglass, things like that. So this is an awesome site because the Library of Congress site to me is very daunting. It's hard to search and it gets clunky. They've found it all for you. So that one's called the MTSU, just right there, the PDF. The red one, yeah. If you keep going down, like you'll notice this one's 22 pages, so it's got things for the entire school year. Supporting text to read, already found for you, activities that go with them. And that's linked on every page, and it'll only have the things that match up what you should be teaching. All right, so down at the bottom, sorry. We did the videos. And we put a quick synopsis of what it's about and the runtime. So you'll notice some of these are long, and I put a little thing like not meant to be shown in its entirety, because some of them are like an hour and something, meaning just show like a snippet. Like don't get caught like you've been showing a movie for 90 minutes. Some of them are super short, brain pop ones, when you should know that already. Baseball saved us. That's one of the things that's not explicitly mentioned, Japanese internment, but oh my gosh, you have to. Like, who would not? The U.S. home front, again, these are short ones that shows like women stepping up and taking jobs. So the last thing I'm going to show you is the unit planning guide. This is linked at the top of every page. We added the state standards, what the big idea is, and then a suggested length. Now remember, these are suggestions. If you teach science, social studies, and writing, how many people are doing that this year? Because I know a lot of schools are switching to that. You're going to have to figure out if that means you're going to do a whole unit of science, then jump to social studies, or if you're going to do a little of both. So your length may be different. So this is not set in stone. If you try to, if she tries to type on it now, it will let Karen because she's, I'm logged in and I'm an owner of this. It's not going to let you. You'll get that message that says request access. Please don't request access because I'm not going to give it to you because if I did, then whatever you type, that would turn into the original. So you're going to make a copy. Name it something you can remember. And for you, your folder, you probably want to put it in your drive so you can keep track of everything you're making. So you'll just name it 5th grade planning, World War II, Mrs. Whoever, Mr. Whoever, tell it okay. Then it'll make a new one and you can type in it. So what you're going to want to do today is, let's say you look at 517. Okay, this is the learning target. You go back to the site. Go down, let's find something that goes with 517. And you're like, oh, I definitely want that. So Karen could copy the link this way and just add it to there, or copy the link address. And then she can just dump it there.